Hey guys, I know it's been a while, but yeah, it's been about a month. So I wanted to go ahead and answer a question that I got. I guess it was in the Telegram group, and the question was, "How do you beat me?" So basically speaking, the quickest way to beat me is just throw me a body scissors and tell me to stop fighting. But all joking aside, guys, I think that's a very good topic to kind of start off with and really dive into. So, really, the first thing about that is going to be the rule number one that I've already given you, which is don't lose. At any point in time, your objective is not to get the submission. It's not even to necessarily escape from a bad position, but it is to not lose at any point within there, right? So the first thing that I'm going to say is that, we talked a little bit about that starting position when we're in that head-to-head. How do we look at that position and how do we start to analyze it and decide what is going to be our best move there, right? And so, one of the things, especially if you're going against me, the first thing that I tend to do, like if somebody starts to get big, right, they start to build their posture up, well, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to knock the tree over and then I'm going to start taking side control or come up to mount or something along those lines, right? Whereas if, sometimes when people get big, they'll do this, this is your combat base, right? This is a good position to kind of start off with. Part of that, the reason why this is a good position is because if I were to start to pull you and try to bring you forward and pull you into my guard or whatever, for one, I've got this frame here, right? So if my elbows to the inside or both elbows to the outside, but you see that my elbows are connected to my legs. And generally speaking, with a combat base, we tend to like this kind of position. Now, notice that my foot, if I were to move over here this way, right? Here's my knee, here's my foot. Okay, and so if I come up into this combat base and I'm here, I don't have a post over here, right? So if somebody's trying to pull me, there's not much to stop me, and especially, once I start going forward, I can't pick up this leg, right? It gets cemented into the mat, and I can't move it. So when I decide I'm going to play this guard passing combat base style, right? When I get here, I want to make sure that leg is forward, right? Now, there are still things that can happen to that leg. There are still things that I can do if I'm on the other side of that to deal with that. But generally speaking, get into this combat base here, and then we're kind of in a tripod here, right? We're making a triangle here, here, and here, right? So I do have dead angles, right, over here or whatever, but this is still just generally a good position to be. Not necessarily this, right? But actually sitting back into this. Now, usually when somebody does that, right, if I were to stand up, you might go to this, right? So now you're set up to do an open guard sort of situation here, right? Because if the other person stands up and is starting to come at you, then you can just sit back and get into this position. Now you're playing guard instead of trying to pass the guard, right? But if I get here or you get here and I've sat down on my butt, well, that means that I'm playing a guard. And in this combat base, it's perfectly fine to kind of get between your opponent's legs here, right? And to the point where they might try to wrap their legs around you. I won't, right? In this position, I wouldn't try to do that. Why? Because I've got this shield here. This is like space here that I'm creating here, that the ankles are not going to be able to be closed up. So once I get into this position, or you get into this position, if I'm still there trying to play this open guard, well, great. You just kind of cement the hips, pin the leg, and just go into your guard pass, right? Whichever one you're going to do. So that's kind of one of the first things that's going to determine how the match is going to go, is whether or not, you don't think about maintaining your position and trying to stay in a good situation from the very beginning, right? And so, a lot of people, again, what they try to do is they'll try to get big. This becomes a very easy thing for me to start to play with and actually start to take advantage of. in this case, I'm starting off in this kind of guard passy scenario, and if they're wearing a belt, I might go double unders here. I might pull their hips in. I might do a low double under pass or something along those lines, a stack pass or something like that. So that would be an option. From here, if somebody's playing guard, I might start to stand up. I might pass guard that way. But getting here to this combat base, that's going to be one of the first things that you're going to do. That's going to give you kind of a beginning advantage, right? And again, for me, that starting position is a guard, right? It isn't a 50-50, and it shouldn't be a 50-50. Right? I know that when you're standing, you have a true 50-50, but the first thing that you're going to try to do when you get into that position when you're starting a standing match is that you're trying to get to a position where you have a slightly better advantage than your opponent. Right? So we talked about this when I did the takedown series, where I'm going to come in and I'm going to own the center. I'm going to get between your arms, right? I'm going to hold onto the back of your neck. I'm going to pressure into here so you can't come into me. I'm going to hold onto the other tricep. Now I can steer you, right? And if you start to pummel in, I'm going to react to that, and I'm going to pummel in. Or if you try to pummel in, I might use that as a way to get to your outside and then come around to your back, right? So there are options there too, but on the ground we have a little bit more of an advantage to actually saying, well, I'm not going to allow this 50-50 from the very beginning. It's much easier to prevent that 50-50 scenario. So when we started on these, then we're going to be trying to do what we can to get an advantage. And to be completely honest with you, it depends on you whether or not going this kind of combat base, I'm going to pass your guard kind of strategy is a better strategy for you versus pulling guard, right? So you figure out which game is you're better at, and that's going to decide what position that you're going to start with in order to start to get that advantage. And so play to your strengths, right? For me, a lot of times, again, I've said this before, I believe, that if I'm rolling with a white belt or a blue belt who's is lower than I am on the blue belt scale, a lot of times I'm going to pull guard. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pull guard here because I know that I can exploit the shit out of that. So you know that if you let me sit back and play guard, well, you might actually be at a disadvantage because I'm going to exploit your inexperience. Whereas, if you come into this, if you pull guard, and your guard is shit, well, maybe that's not the best strategy for you either. So try to figure out which one that you're better at and lead off and start the match well. Okay? So that's my first part of this.